In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to our Mystical Islam channel. Today we have a story that is not only surprising, but also holds deep lessons about how our actions affect our fate. This story will make you think about how important it is to live a righteous life, not just outwardly, but also in your heart and actions. There was once a very devout and pious man. He was always busy with the worship of Allah. His days and nights were spent remembering Allah, and because of his deep devotion, everyone around him respected him. He was seen as a leader and guide, admired for his patience, humility, and dedication to his religion. As the man grew older, he sensed that his time in this world was coming to an end. He knew death was near, and before he passed, he made a strange request to his followers and friends. He said to them, "When I die, place my body in a coffin and take it outside the city. Leave it under a tree near the outskirts of the town. When a group of Christians arrives with a funeral, exchange my coffin with theirs. Give them my body and bring their deceased person back with you." Everyone was confused and shocked by this request. They couldn't understand why someone so pious, who had served Allah all his life, would want to be buried in a Christian cemetery. On top of that, why would he want to bring a Christian's body to be buried in the Muslim graveyard? Naturally, they asked the man, "Why are you asking us to do this? What will happen if we follow your request?" The man replied, "The Christians will take my body and bury me in their graveyard according to their customs, while you will bring the Christian's body and bury it in the Muslim cemetery according to Islamic customs." This made things even more confusing. Why would a devout Muslim choose to be buried by Christians? And why would a Christian's body be brought to a Muslim cemetery? When people asked him for more details, the man said, "I can't reveal the reason now. If I tell you, you may refuse to carry out my last wish. The secret will only be clear after my death." Although puzzled, the people respected him and agreed to follow his instructions. They trusted that this man had a good reason, even if they couldn't understand it at that moment. Not long after, the man passed away, but something strange happened. After he died, his once radiant face began to darken and lose its light. His face, which used to be full of peace and serenity, now appeared distorted and disfigured. The people were shocked and disturbed. They couldn't understand how someone so dedicated to worship could end up in such a state. However, they honored his final wishes. They washed his body and prepared it for burial. Following his instructions, they placed his body in a coffin and took it to the tree outside the city, leaving it there as he had asked. They waited for the Christians to arrive with their funeral. Soon enough, a group of Christians arrived with a funeral, just as the pious man had predicted. The Muslims exchanged coffins with the Christians, giving them the body of their leader and taking the Christians deceased in return. After the exchange, the Muslims, still puzzled, asked the Christians if they knew the reason behind this strange arrangement. To their surprise, the Christians said they did know. They explained that the body they had handed over belonged to a priest. This priest had recently passed away, but before his death, he had made a very similar request. He had told his people, "When I die, exchange my body with the coffin of the Muslim preacher who will be buried under the tree." The Muslims were shocked. How could both men make such unusual requests? What was the connection between them? The Christians then shared what their priest had told them. Before his death, the priest had explained that the Muslim preacher, who spent his entire life serving Islam, will die as a Christian, and I, who have lived as a Christian all my life, will die as a Muslim. The Muslims were even more surprised. How could a Muslim preacher who had spent his life worshipping Allah die as a Christian? And how could a Christian priest who had followed Christianity all his life die as a Muslim? The Christians explained that when they asked their priest the same question, he had told them, "Throughout my life, I have never allowed myself to look at a woman with a sinful gaze. Because I avoided this sin, Allah will grant me the blessing of dying with faith in Islam." But the Muslim preacher, despite his life of devotion, could not control his gaze. He allowed himself to look at women inappropriately, and because of this sin, he will die without his faith. The Muslims were left speechless by this explanation. The story made them realize that no matter how much outward devotion one may show, it is the purity of one's heart and actions that truly matter. The Muslim preacher had worshipped Allah all his life, but his inability to control his gaze led to a loss of faith at the time of his death. The lesson from this story is clear. It teaches us that piety is not only about praying, fasting, or other outward acts of worship. True piety also means keeping our hearts and actions pure. Small sins, like looking at someone with a sinful gaze, can have major consequences if we do not seek forgiveness and change our behavior. In Islam, we are taught to control our desires, thoughts, and actions. This story reminds us to be mindful of every aspect of our lives, even things that seem minor. Allah is not only aware of what we do, but also what is in our hearts. We must strive to purify ourselves from within and constantly ask Allah for forgiveness for any mistakes, big or small. We pray to Allah to guide us and protect us from sins, especially those that we may overlook or consider unimportant. May Allah help us live according to His commands and protect us from anything that could harm our faith. We ask Allah to grant us a good ending with La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah on our tongues when we die. Ameen. If you feel this story has touched your heart and you want to join in this prayer, type Ameen in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Mystical Islam channel to continue receiving thought-provoking Islamic content. Thank you for watching, and peace be upon you until our next video.